I got a question from a viewer yesterday asking me what I think of the new modern trend towards these desert camo colored guns and the wannabes that carry them. Well, that's kind of a loaded question, calling people wannabes simply because they choose a specific color gun, but I'll try to address the topic as best I can. Now, I will say right off the bat that I have never understood why someone would want to take a beautiful gun like a SIG or a Beretta 92 or M9 or a 1911 and say, you know what would make this gun look better if I painted it with paint from the diarrhea rainbow. I've just never understood why someone would want to put those colors on a beautiful gun. It just looks awful to me. So my own personal opinion of them isn't that great. But about people being wannabes simply because they carry them, well, I can't say I agree with that. Now, I will say, I think this is more of a civilian thing than it is a military thing because, I was never issued a brown weapon in the military. They were always black. I don't know if that's true today because, like I say, it's been a while. I'm kind of old. But most of the people I see today still get issued black weapons, M9s, etc. So I don't understand where the big brown trend came from because I don't think the military carries a lot of brown weapons. But it is very popular today and it is very military inspired. So I can see where some people would say, oh, this is wannabes. But, I don't really know if it is wannabes because I think it's more of a civilian thing than it is a military thing. But there's no denying that it's inspired by the military. We are in a desert theater now, so all the collars that the military produce on their trucks, their uniforms, etc., are the desert camo collars. And those collars have come to the guns. They are now popular on the firearms that people carry. Now, is there any practical reason to have your carry gun be those collars? Well, no, there's no practical reason for it. The only practical reason I can think is if you carried a gun like that was if you were an actual operator and you actually carried a brown gun overseas and you wanted to keep the same gun for consistency's sake while you're in the States, that would be the only practical reason I could ever see to have a gun that's that color. Although I don't think there's a lot of former operators roaming around with those color guns in this country, especially not on YouTube, although you might think differently if you actually watch YouTube. Which is what I kind of think spawns the wannabe stigma, because you see all these guys that were ex-special ops or ex-special forces, whatever, on YouTube. When I was in the military, I almost never saw a special ops person. I saw them rarely, but not often, and in my MOS, you work in CID, so you see them occasionally, but they were rare. But based on what I see on YouTube and how many guys are ex-special ops or ex-operators, I should have been tripping on one every damn time I went to the latrine, but that wasn't happening. So like I say, I understand why people say, oh, they're wannabes. Some people are wannabes. Some people have a reason to present themselves as something that they've never really been. And we've seen it all on YouTube. We've all seen people that do that. We know people that do it now. I don't really think it's that big of a deal, but it happens. YouTube is mostly make-believe anyway, so I really don't care. This what I'm doing right now, this is a character. The Yankee Marshal is a character. So it's not that uncommon and it's not that crazy. So, I really don't pay that much attention to it. But when it comes right down to it, I don't think the desert camo trend makes anybody a wannabe. A lot of people emulate the military. A lot of people, idolize the military. This is not, wannabe stuff. This is a tribute, if you ask me. And this is common. This has happened throughout history. This is, even back in the 60s when soldiers came back over from overseas and wore their jackets in protest, their camo jackets as like a badge of honor while they marched or protest. That made its way into pop culture. It started being emulated by civilians. So that's a common thing. And that's what's happening now. These guns are very popular because of what the military is currently doing. And people want to pay tribute to the military. Kind of like I say, I have Punisher grips on some of my guns. There's nothing practical about that. It's a tribute to one of my favorite comic book characters. Having a brown gun is the same thing. The only difference is instead of paying tribute to a fictional character, you're paying tribute to real troops. If you go out and buy a single action Army Colt, that doesn't mean you're a cowboy wannabe. It means you just appreciate cowboy culture. You like the history. You want to show that you like the history, so you bought a gun that they used. It's the same thing with these guns. In fact, it's no different than if you chose to carry a Beretta M9 because the military carries it and you respect the military and you want to pay tribute to them, whether it's black or brown, it's the same concept. So in the end, I don't think there's anything wannabe about having that type of gun. Wannabe's got to do with the person, not the gun. So the gun itself, those collars on a gun, I don't think there's any problem with that. I think it's a tribute to the military and I think that's just great. Now, I would never want one. I cannot imagine a day that I would say, you know what I want? I want a gun that looks like somebody just dipped it in a baby's diaper. So even though I'm okay with everybody else buying them, it's not something I would ever want to buy. And that being said, I'm a hypocrite.